WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's March 15th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, more on the end results of the General Assembly's 2024 session that ended last week. We'll learn about 3 bills Governor Eric Holcomb signed into law, including one on robotics competitions, one about tenure protections for professors, and one meant to address the over-consolidation of healthcare in Indiana. And a story about a new smartphone app Hoosiers can use to contribute to NASA scientific research.
And will basically be used to measure things called belly beads during the eclipse and therefore determine the size and shape of the sun.
Those stories coming up. But first, a new report shows Indiana only has 34 affordable and available rental units for every 100 extremely low-income households in the state. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Violet Cumber-Weiland reports advocates are calling on the governor to come up with solutions.
About 26% of Indiana's renter households are considered extremely low income, and the number of these households has increased by 10,000 since 2023. Aspen Clemens is the executive director for Prosperity Indiana, one of the organizations behind the report. She says it also reveals that over 70% of Hoosiers are severely cost-burdened by housing, meaning they spend more than half of their income on it.
That's less than 50% of their income to spend on other basic life necessities, including food, health care, transportation, child care, the things that they need to be able to, A, contribute to our workforce and be productive community citizens.
Prosperity Indiana and other housing advocacy groups called on Governor Eric Holcomb to appoint a commission on housing safety, stability, and affordability to address these concerns and come up with practical solutions. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Violet Cumber-Weiland.
Governor Eric Holcomb signed a bill into law this week that will allow more students to participate in robotics competitions. Kirsten Adair reports the new law will increase the number of schools that can receive robotics grants and allow them to spend the money to purchase robot building materials.
The law allows schools to use K-12 robotics competition grant funding for expenses related to robotics competitions, like supplies to build robots. Currently, those funds can only be used to pay for attendance costs. The new law also expands robotics funding to accredited non-public schools and amends the definition of eligible team to include competitive community-based robotics programs. The law's author, Representative Chuck Goodrich, says the funding expansion to non-public schools will allow about 75 more robotics teams to compete. Democratic lawmakers expressed concern about a provision in the law that bars robotics coaches from collective bargaining. However, the bill was still widely supported by the General Assembly. The law takes effect July 1, 2024. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Kirsten Adair.
Governor Holcomb also signed Senate Bill 202, which requires professors at Indiana's public universities to promote, quote, intellectual diversity in the classroom in order to keep tenure protections. Holcomb told Indiana Public Media in a statement the bill, quote, establishes a foundation at our publicly funded universities to ensure freedom of expression for students and faculty. Many faculty disagree, saying the bill's ambiguous language could lead professors to lose their jobs for political reasons. Protests on IU's campus and testimony at the State House urged the governor to veto the bill. IU administrators have also denounced the bill, although their counterparts at Purdue have said its provisions won't impact what Purdue has already been doing. Nonetheless, the Purdue Faculty Senate said it would allow the state to interfere with academic freedom. Similar bills targeting tenure have passed in Republican-led states such as Texas and Florida. And the governor signed legislation that is meant to address the over-consolidation of healthcare in the state. Abigail Ruhrman reports the new law requires hospitals and other healthcare entities to notify the state of certain mergers and acquisitions.
Hospitals and other healthcare entities that have mergers and acquisitions that cross a $10 million threshold would be required to notify the Attorney General. The Attorney General can then do an antitrust review, but would not have the authority to approve or deny the merger or acquisition. The legislation does not have any penalty provision if someone fails to notify the Attorney General. The new law also requires the information in the notification to be sealed. Some lawmakers are concerned the new law will require people to share private information from private businesses with the government. The author of the legislation says it's a simple notification and an effort to address Indiana's high healthcare costs. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
And for our final story today, students and faculty at a Kentucky university have created a smartphone app that can help to discern the exact shape of the sun. As Tim Jagalow reports, most Hoosiers can use the app to contribute to NASA's scientific research.
Everyone is talking about the solar eclipse, so you probably know that most of Indiana is along the path of totality, or the best area for viewing the event. Western Kentucky University, with funding from NASA, have created SunSketcher, a free smartphone app that can gather real scientific data. WKU physics and astronomy professor Gordon Emsley says the app is easy for anyone to use and will help study the sun specifically during the eclipse.
And will basically be used to measure things called belly beads during the eclipse, and therefore determine the size and shape of the sun. And it's been designed by a small army of students. It's been a wonderful team effort.
It will take multiple images of the sun as it enters totality. The app will be available soon for both Android and Apple smartphones. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Tim Jagalow.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Darian Benson, Drew Dodlin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Aubriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday.